Come on in. I got a little show and tell for everybody today. I'm going to start right here with, these are examples of my teacher's work. He applied layers over layers and created images on clear glass on clear. Chuck Murphy was his name. And his most copied item was the paperless joint. You would have stacked that full, and then as you use it, you'd slide it down, and the O-ring would keep your seal, and the spring was your screen. This is what my work looked like in 1971, and I blew the mouthpiece ends of those. And towards the end of the year, I was making carburetors that worked like that, and that's what they were designed for right there. So that was my teacher in 71. His work had evolved to that. In 72, I took him some copper filings and we blended them together, and we thought we might get goldstone, and it was a surprise. It turned red, and we were running out of propane, and the flame was going richer and richer towards the oxygen end, and we actually got a transparent green out of the other end. We were just amazed. Okay, we hadn't figured anything out. We just made a simple discovery. In fact, didn't know how to get the green back for a long time until, oh, you got to have more oxygen. So by 1981, well, Chuck and I made copper red, and it would have looked something like this, like the lips on that little dragon face there. He used that as applique, but the thing about making this, you could make a few ounces of this when you could have made all of those pieces. So it wasn't practical. By 1981 and 82, I was already fuming things a bit. This was the rig of the day. This was what a hash oil pipe was. You'd put your oil on a pin and touch the bottom of that and heat that with an alcohol lamp if you had one. And I used to make pretty little bottles that were alcohol lamps. And again, the carburetor, a little bit of fuming, and some safety devices in there. Those are roach catchers, because back in the day we didn't make cardboard tube crutches, and you smoked it all the way down to the last little bit.
But that fuming was not silver at that time, correct?
No, this is, there back here was Chuck's. This is like a decade later, and this would have been silver and gold on my part, and I was just beginning to figure it out. This was more about an 85, 86 design. Here is a design that included fuming, but it wasn't mine. It was done as a downhill from John Burton, and people made this line of pipes using silver nitrate, silver oxide, gold chloride, and it was a solid flared bowl, and then a bubble blown and stretched to make that. After you put all these gathers over and blow the bubble, you stretch and a little twist, and there you are. But that was silver nitrate spatters more, puts a lot more contaminant in the air. Whole metal process is basically cleaner, but there was glass that was colored glass before my time. And anyhow, This is more like what I made in 87. There's a 92 piece. This was 93, just after you could buy more than two colors from North Star. And I'm going to show you how to make a color, not the copper red, but silver white. Now I'm going to take this back to the black paper or black background. See how kind of the more transparent it is, actually the more translucent it becomes. So a thinner layer of silver in the color sometimes makes it more opalescent. And we're going to make some color that'll be all those different examples, and we'll get to that. But I'm going to show you some commercial color that was available in 1982, and that will be what was sold by Whale Apparatus Company, and it's a low expansion borosilicate colored glass rod. Well, the center was sintered, and it was about a 50 millimeter heavy wall tube that would be stretched through dies and pulled down to be a rod of color. And right here is an example of a yellow one, and if he gets to zoom in, you'll see this little clear layer of clear surrounding the center. They recommended you use a vacuum pump when you would clarify this the first time before you ever went to use it. Now here's a piece I made in 1986. I had just gotten the first kiln that had a controller. That was exciting. Actually, it wasn't even a full-on controller. It was 5 levels, but it wouldn't run away. So anyhow, these are a clear star that I stacked into a plaster mold that I made, and then I heated the bottom of the mold and set it into a 1200 degree kiln and ran it up to 1500 and then back down, and all the clear fused. And then I soaked it in plaster, or soaked the plaster in water, and brought it out, heated it up again on the kiln, punnied up to it, and started drawing lines of the red. And I have this little piece left from like 1986. So now these colors next to it, these were called Tasmanian colors, or Taz colors, and he was also called chameleon glass. His colors can be pretty much picked out by the fact they have like a bullseye in the middle, and most of them were about the 10 to 12 millimeter rod. He ended up becoming a pretty popular artist, and he couldn't keep up with production of making color, so he just stuck with making color for himself. Some examples of a lavender color that was from a company in France. This red right here is what they call an ionic bond, was the finish on here, and that's a decal that was fired onto it. That red, when exposed to a reducing flame, kind of livers out, and that's what the color looks like. But there it is, and it's splendid. If you made all the shapes, you can actually have that coating put on, and then
Afterwards.
after the piece is made. Now the fabled gun mounts. Actually, you melt this down and let it have some convection in a crucible, and that'll turn into the original moss screen. These were all set up to be used in a cathode ray tube. Cathode ray tubes are what powered televisions before flat screen. also X-ray machines and a few other things. Some of them were sophisticated in design. This had electrical properties actually. There were.
Why did they use different colors on these gun mounts?
I believe because if you used chrome and got the green, uh, it had so many milliamps of resistance, and then
It was always about
the different colors had electrical conductivity of like a resistor, and they probably even went to the same color codes. But here's another color that was made commercially up in Washington. This is Mumpka's color, and they do this patterns of several colors in a rod. She was the first one, I believe, that I ever saw any rods like that. This was tubing that was available in the early 90s that was an import from India, and there it was $10.50 each or $105 a dozen, and it's telling you you're going to increase your production instantly. It's really, all the pieces looked the same, so there wasn't any real excitement there. Oh, this little sample kit. If you've ever taken a tour of Dave's studio or workshop, they'll have all these different shapes actually in sizes a lot bigger. But here's like, those are all tubes. One of them's a double tube. All this has scientific apparatus potential. But that, you can get shapes like this and be solid. You can get a square tube. This makes beautiful bottles. I'd love to get a case of this stuff. Pegasus glass. So this is where we're going today. We're going to make this color. I'm going to explain what these other two are. This is a gold trapped inside of the tube and worked enough to become color. That's both gold. This is copper oxide, and this is silver in a whole metal state in most cases. And that's where we're headed. We're headed towards the fire. But before we start a fire, we're going to clean up just a little bit. I want to cut this rod. This is my first fireman. Say something goes on the floor and lands on my mat, I can follow it down and prevent any stink. Is that. Now here we got a piece of 6mm rod. Oh yeah, when the fireman's not responding, he's usually cleaning up around his place, right? And sometimes they make music. I made a cone on the end of one of these one time. Cones usually bust after a few of this. They just explode, self-disintegrate. But the cone throws a devastating screech. Like you'll see somebody half a block away.
Flash.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I cut a glass rod this size, usually with a scoring knife, and I put too much pressure on that. Let's try a little less pressure. That's the sound I want to hear. And then you use different fingers when you do this over and over again. I wet my finger, touch that spot, put my thumbs together over the score, pull apart, and think about moving my elbows down. I did not say move my elbows down, only think about it. Because if you go like that, you're liable to throw a big old toenail up on one side or a shard. It's a good way to make a scalpel, but I'm going to use these as something to help gather. And let's see, I'm going to start with a piece of tubing. No, I'm not here yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go down here.
Hey Bob, what was that, your scoring implement over there?
That's a scoring knife.
Scoring, someone was asking if it's a file.
I used to use 3-corner files a lot, and you can even sharpen them back up. And when I was making those kind of joint holders, it was a file I was using, a 3-corner side, and then you can refresh them by just running them on a belt sander or something. But this is a tungsten blade, tungsten carbide, and where it's chipped, actually, it's really good for cutting. I just press down and turn the glass under it is the best bet, and then thumbs together over the score and pull.
Think about
And just think about moving the elbows. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to collect some silver. And I've got a silver 999 fine coin here. And the vice grips are a real good friend. Keep your knuckles back. I should actually have my gloves on for this one. Doesn't take a lot of filings, and I already have a nice accumulation, so what I do is I just drop those in there. Now, you're going to watch, see, I use the magnets to hold things up all over my benches, and that's why those tools are flexible, but I'm going to use the magnet to go mining here. You see, as that file's made out of steel, when I go and I use a steel file, do you see some action on there? It looks like magic or something. There's something floating around, swimming against the current. Well, I can bring that over and bring it right up over the top, and that was a piece of iron I just took out of there. That would have been a black spot. And I see there's another piece of iron. So let's just kind of gold miner it, and I'm going to shake it and keep the magnet in one place. So I should have a heavier concentration of the iron there. Oh yeah, oh, dropped them. There's one, nope. Pick them up under the magnetic, drag them up the side, and they'll fall back. Oh, here comes a whole new gang of them. You see the little balls of metal moving around?
Oh yeah.
So that's some silver with iron stuck to it. And I've pretty got it clean, so I don't have any black spots in there. And we're going to do stuff with that later. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take a little ball of silver. We're going to cut a piece of silver off of here. There's a magnetic on that tool right there. Pick it up. I got these from a guy that was 90 when I was less than 50. That and a blowpipe, and the blowpipe didn't have plastic mouthpiece. It was brass.
I think I remember that. So you'd watch your teeth.
Yeah. So I've softened that silver previously, and there it's just how easy I can cut it. Then these go back to where they came from. And now I'm about to start a fire. So my fingernails, they crack and chip pretty easy, and I figured out that after wearing gloves for a little while, they didn't crack and chip near as easy. So I think I dry them out working too close to the flame sometimes. And check. There's that. Now, I put these Marias on a piece so that I can see it on the bench, and it stands out to me. And what I'm going to do is adjust this down to pretty much a little bit of a reducing flame. That means it's heavier on gas than oxygen. And I just touched down on that little ball of silver, and I'm waiting, and now I'll turn that over because I don't want that to drip back out. It shouldn't be molten yet. Now I wet it right there, and it's pretty much bonded to the glass for the time being. And I'm going to enter just about the blue cone. I'm going to offer that ball of metal to it. You see those little sparkles in there? That's silver riding on the flame, just like you jump into a waterfall. Here we go. This cooler piece of glass, I'm going to catch that silver. Now that's just the first coat. We're going to build up a few more layers. I soften the flame. Now I go to my outer fire too, and I want it to show shades of yellow in it, so it's got a bit of reduction going on. More translucent colors come with reduction. And I'm working on a Carlisle CC. I got my first one of these in '93. And that's also the same year I moved into this bus for a workshop.
What sort of torches?
National hand torches. One time I had taken solenoids and got a three-way solenoid. So one side would be normally open, one side would be normally closed. And I had like a 35-hole tip on the one that was on my left and a single orifice on my right. Because of my style, I require that point of a flame to be able to draw lines, and my artwork's lines and dots. And then I twist the glass. And I deposit silver and gold in between layers of glass. So I'm putting a hole in there. And I'm going to fume some silver on the inside too. A high ratio of silver to the glass. We made a little silver oxide there when it makes smoke. That's not being reducing enough sometimes. So this will make more of a caramel color because of that not softening the flame at the right time. If I was after the real translucent stuff. But I'm after something that's going to be kind of caramel. I might even put some more silver on there because look, I got this side that's transparent as all get out. Look. So are there any live people out there? We getting any input?
Yeah, they're chatting, talking to each other.
Anybody got a question?
Pretty Barron says the bus is us.
Yeah, this is a 47 GMC 471 two-cycle. Detroit diesel pusher. So I'm just collapsing the tube and rolling up that fumed glass. I'm trying not to trap a lot of air in it.
What size tubing is that, Bob?
Oh, I've got a 12 mil blowpipe piece here that's standard wall 1.5, and then I've got a piece about 38 by 1.8 or 2.2. I'm not sure. I didn't check it with my cool little tool.
Hey, so are you going to the Michigan project this year?
Probably not unless it'll be just a visit as we drive through. We're going all the way to Maine, and this is our 50th anniversary year, and going to a couple dead shows out there, going to another concert or two, and just letting it fall back on itself. It's getting thicker. Color's also getting cooked. So it's reacting with the glass as it, when I blew it out to about a 1.2 or something. I use standard wall for most everything below 30 millimeters. Once I go above 30 millimeters, it's easier to burn a hole in your standard wall, especially if you use a center fire with much pressure. So I go to 2.5. When I stack millies up, I'll use some 3 stuff.
And what's your favorite frame?
Well, I think I'm a Cymax supporter more than anything else. See, I learned on the old Corning, and the thing is, that stuff, I could bend it back and forth 2.5 times. Cymax, I can bend it back and forth about 4 times. Duran seems to bend back and forth a long time too. So what I just did, squeeze some air out of there. I can fume more silver onto this and fold it back up again. And I'm just making a more concentrated color. Oh, I've got my ventilation mounted on the roof of the next building. So what that does, that prevents any of the real vibration from a 5,000 CFM fan from being transferred to in my shop. And say I did something silly like set this piece of hot glass, excuse me, down on a baggie or my water bottle or something. I've got this turbo fan over here. We're going to go to the floor and I step on the foot pedal. And can you hear that?
Yeah.
And if you were here, you can about now notice that the air around your ears is moving in the direction of this foot. And so I can clear the air in here really fast. Supposedly the number of cubic feet per second that happen are more than the bus when I have everything running. But it's not going really fast, it's just going. If I pop a bubble, it'll float whoop, whoop, up and away. Oh, and you want to check the ventilation in your shop? Smoking doobies and looking where the smoke goes, that's cool. But what really lets you see more accurately what's going on is get some kids' bubbles and blow bubbles.
So Freddie's asking if that's the silver white rod you make.
That's what I'm making, Freddie. And I'm just trying to work most of the bubbles out of it, and I guess I'll get it a little hotter and make it go a little faster. It's going to mean bigger punnies. The 6 isn't big enough to hold on to that.
There's 33 people in the room right now.
Hi guys.
You're lucky 33.
Katie Loco would like that. That's her lucky number. Well, I guess I should have boosted my posts. But I haven't paid anything for whatchamacallit, Facebook myself yet. Okay, let's get this really hot, make a ball and change the axis on it. Wait. And when I'm going up close, I'm taking air bubbles that have come to the surface and popping them with the pinpoint flame on my torch. I never saw one of these until after I showed Homer Hoyt my one I made from plastics injection mold piece of graphite that was a single hemisphere. And the next year when I came back, he had these, which are really good. Now, I bought hundreds of parts of really hard graphite at a flea market in San Diego. And this was my first marble mold. I made it up to have a handle. pretty dull. Doesn't have a sharp edge. A lot of wear. Yeah. Gotta pull that down a little bit. Three, four, broke off over there. I didn't want to do that online because of the safety factor, but you want a chuck on your drill that you can set to have it totally slip. So I would already be done with this. It would, but the thing is, the look of this opposed to one that you mix with the drill, one you mix with the drill almost comes out looking like one from North Star. The color's more homogeneous. You don't get all these little subtle things, but you do get a real good mix. But definitely have a safety chuck, a rather fireproof shop, your first fireman, and maybe a bodyguard. Don't try anything silly like high speed. Dremel will throw glass across the room. People will get hurt. So you want to use this slow motion to get the nice steady mix. And the safety chuck. So if anything gets too stiff, the drill slips instead, it throws a hot glob of glass at you, which it can do. Oz has, oh yeah, I've thrown glass different places. Coolest thing I ever did with drills was I took two of them that had a dial that you could adjust the speed and take your finger off. And I made my first lathe out of two drills going opposite directions at the same speed. But all I could do was, one end was on a little drill press. All I could do was solid stuff because it hadn't worked out a T-swivel to be able to blow into it. But that's what you need if you want to blow, is a swivel that's a T. And keep it well lubed. And if you use blow swivels and they start to get all funky on you, when you're leaving your shop and you've just turned the kiln off, go ahead and toss a couple of them that need cleaned out into the kiln. And about walk away, and they should be pretty clean when you come back. If not, they're all gray and stuff, and you drop them in a bucket of water and then throw them back in a hot kiln again. Let them drip dry, you know. You don't want to have it full of water. So if I keep putting whatever's thicker to the top side, as I stretch, the heat escaping, rising straight up, helping the thicker part continue to melt. And that looks like almost a couple rods of commercial color for size. Whenever you've got lumps in it, the more you mix that, the more homogeneous it'll be, but also the more bubble free it should become. I tend to trap bubbles the first couple times around. So I used to mix cobalt oxide the same way I did that. And if I wanted a cobalt blue tube, I would coil pot it. Now they're made in several countries and variable quality. So I used to mix up a little bit like that. So when I first started figuring silver out and things, I didn't have anybody to say, oh yeah, build this layer up over that or make patterns like this. I was out there in my own little invention world. So I used to make little balls on the end of a piece of tubing, and then I'd join those together sequentially to go from small to large. Get that a little too thin out there. I want to make this all a uniform wall thickness. So sometimes it's all on the outside. Sometimes we use pressed oxygen, just throw oxygen on a piece from a hand torch. So I'm going to make like 4 or 5 sections, and then we'll join them. I see a big bubble here, so I'm going to try to extract it. I want to heat just the bubble. I've pulled up a little nipple light. and that's hollow under there. I'm going to touch down and just let that cool for a second and then pull it away, and it broke around there. Let's go back to a little bit of reduction in the flame. It kind of helps keep it from having tiny bubbles all around where I just broke it. And that was just the outer wall. So there's an inner wall and outer wall of one piece of glass, except where the big bubble was. There was two inner walls and two outer walls. And now it's back to one. That'll do it. And I stand my pieces on end and let them cool. Now another way I make a hollow shape. Well, let's dress this one up and give it some lines. It'll get this. Straighten that nub just a little bit. There we go. Just a little silver over it. Now we'll draw 5 lines of clear over that. And I'm going to heat that and let it melt to a flat surface. All the lines that I laid down have silver trapped underneath them. The lines that are on the surface of the silver are tending to be oxidized a little bit and going to be more cream colored. Amount of fume, I believe.
What pressure do you run your
Propane's about half of the oxygen, and oxygen varies a little bit, but it's been split between 4 stations, 5 stations. So we run a little higher pressure. If I'm running all by myself, I run a 5 and a 10. So I just sealed that marble onto the end of this tube. And I'm going to heat up the marble, allow the tube to chill down a little bit. There, I'm going to point it up. Again, it just started to round on the inside. Get out of here, Ant. This is not a nature channel. So what I do is I start my bubble by blowing, and then I close my lips so that my lips are sealed behind it, and it's just holding the pressure in there. And as the air heats up, the bubble expands just a little. And the first time you blow, the glass hasn't started moving, so it's really not ready to. Once you create momentum on that initial second blow, then you can blow the piece out a lot easier because the glass has already started to move. You're just enhancing momentum. It has a little bit. It's not stagnant. It's not sitting still static. And wait. That's like first one is fireplace glass. Second one's a Didinium. No, it's actually Nero Ceram or a Pyro Ceram. That's a transparent ceramic that can get a lot hotter than Boral. I used to get the scrap from a fella that made the dryer doors for the plywood mill. And this stuff's $19 a square inch. But because he had already sold it for $19 a square inch and had these little 6-inch pedant pieces, score, yeah, I'd give him marbles. I can still take marbles with me. It's crazy how many people I bump into it. Something like Pacific Rubber. There's like a guy there. Oh, it's you. Hey, Bob. And then people come out of the back room, and then all of a sudden everybody in the place knows who I am. Oh, you're the guy that started the bone factories. No, I didn't start them. The kids that looked over my shoulder went off to become rich and famous. And I just used a little gravity to stretch the thicker part of that, and I have a rather uniform, that was blown out from a solid slug instead of coil potting a tube. Let's see. Let's make this really patternful. Too much pattern there. So there's some air bubbles in here, so I'm going to hear it crack. Right there. Another crack. So I'm going to pick that up with this other hot piece of glass. They were hot enough to stick together. Oh, and talk about hot enough. What I'm going to demonstrate in the next few seconds will be what's called auto ignition. So you just somehow knock the fire off your torch. turn the gas back on, or leave the gas on, and just bring your piece of molten glass into the gas trail, and you'll get a fire. I'm trying to do that and catch it with slow motion camera to make business cards from that fella right there. That you'll see it. Need a better camera than what we have. That's really good high speed. One of those ones that catches bullets would catch that. Poof, 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 poof. Okay. Oh, we're going to fume some gold on that. Maybe. I have 24 karat gold and 23 karat gold. And they both give a little bit different colors and effects. This is the outer edge of a 1/10 ounce gold coin, Canadian maple leaf or United States, I don't know which. One of them had the 24 and one had the 23. And I think the Canadian in the 1/10 ounce was 24 karat. Now when I make a piece, I'm going to pick up this chunk of gold right here. When I make a piece for, I'm going to fume off of, I like to put Marias around it. So go around and around and around and heat one spot, and I try to keep those two things lined up with each other, and I get this little motorcycle tire. That's how I used to make my motorcycles. Make Marias for the tire on the motorcycle.
Were they functional?
No, but I made motorcycles and did ballerinas and all those different kind of things. When I do a hot air balloon show, I'd make little hot air balloons and make pendants. Before '87, with my own homemade colors.
And then what happened in '87?
Went to my first Grateful Dead concert. And then Deadheads really liked marbles and pipes. And there's no need to make delicate things like ballerinas and unicorns and Pegasus with wings. And I made some that they were on pipes. But, oh, there it is. So for gold, I'm going to come up again. I'm going to heat it until it's there, but the surface tension on the gold allows me to turn it at either 90 degrees to it or even suspend it. And it has such a great surface tension. And see that green flame? I hope it interprets as a green flame.
Yes.
That's, we'll see in a second. If this cools and is shiny, then it's 24 karat. If it cools and has a dingy, this is the dingy one, that's 23 karat. 23 karat actually sticks better than 24. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to draw some lines on here, but this time I'll just draw a continuous line. No, went to Autzen in '87 also, but it was Easter weekend at Irvine Meadows, and by the time I got to Autzen, I was already up to at least 3 shows. I met Bernie Singer at the shows at Monterey. He was a friend of Holly Rose's, and he had just graduated from place on the East Coast where Dan Kay graduated, Salem Community College. Yeah, he had just graduated from Salem, and he was going to go home to Arcata and work making water treatment tubes. And I showed him fuming and pipes, and I changed his whole game. Yeah. Pardon?
So you've done that for a few folks. Changed their
Yep. And the real one that really impresses me is how well so many of them have done. I'd like to see a couple. I physically saved a guy's life when he went to the bottom of the lake, and I might have been 19. Everybody was laughing and thinking he was being so cool. He had like the Armani glasses, and he's tried to swim out to the dock in his combat boots, and he lost his $100 pair of glasses, and he panicked, and he swallowed water and sunk. And people were all laughing, thinking he was playing. I saw his eyes roll back. I got there. Every time he saw me, he'd like, bring me a six. It's pretty funny. But yeah, you wonder about some people. Yeah.
Also change some stuff.
We'll be right back after a brief word from www.snodgrass.net. Need batteries? I got a little battery charger down there, and I got regular batteries in the house.
Yeah. That might be, yeah, it should be turning on, it's not turning on.
So if you want to locate some batteries, you could ask John or Marie.
Sorry for the battery difficulty there. We're still on track.
Got that from my grandpa. He taught me how to wave a fireman's lantern, or not a fireman, railroad man. Well, the fireman on the railroad. And the conductor and the engineer all could wave lanterns. I was a lucky little kid to go to the roundhouse, climb up on trains my grandpa drove. In West Middlesex, Pennsylvania.
Yep. Whoa. What's all that? I think it might have you up to try it again. Again? Okay, that looks good. That looks good. Okay. I'm gonna catch you.
Yeah, I gotta get the thicker back on this end. So, the solution to thicken up this end, give it a punny for a second. Just before it goes closed, give it a little puff of air. Shrink that again. I'll work my punny a little bit off. I want to get back on the axis. I go right above it and give it a dog leg to the center. And now I'm back on center. Little push, a little blow. Tap, and off comes funny. I really want this pattern to look like it migrates, so I'm going to join it to this ball. And I'm going to join it clear over here off axis a little bit. Just set up a thin spot. There we go. play some torch music. Torch music I really appreciate is when the air inside of a bubble starts to oscillate and it'll hum. I'm going to get both of these about the same size. That one's a little small yet. Go back to the right size. And I want them about the same temperature, same glow. Then I'll pull a little bit. Try to correct that back to being an axis with what I got. I'll take this off. And there's a little bit of scotch right down there. So I'm going to go collect it. And try to real sweetly turn it off. And then I'm going to pull that down. And wait. And then I'm going to bend that away. And I'm not going to leave any marks. And then I take this end and I go to my water bucket. And I go like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, come out, do a tap and it falls. At least for beginners, you should do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Learn to count and everything and up a little bit. Stretch it more on this end. So I might shrink something and blow it and shrink it and blow it. And each time it gets a little more refined. Until I find what I'm happy with. And it's about 1 in 10 pieces really comes out the way I wanted it to. And then about 1 in 100 come out so phenomenal. I'm going to heat that in the distance. That I've grown to believe those are pieces I should give away so somebody will be a caretaker for them so I can come back and see them again. Because once you sell something, it's out the door. But when a friend's got it, there's a good chance you'll see it again and again. And sometimes you put together dots in a certain way that just, that's epic. Now I can seal the end and just go into the flame, and the air that's trapped inside expands and pop the hole there. It's tougher to do with gloves, so bare fingers work better. And my foot pedal is designed to be on when my foot's on the pedal. If I drop something, I'm going to get back. The flame's going to go smaller. If something else is going on, instantly you're saving oxygen. And there's like some people are making a double foot pedal that only thing will be left on is your gas. I've made a few like that, but most of mine are exactly what this one is. Although I use check valves, two sets of them on my foot pedals, and now the parts are just too steep to want to build them. I do have some old-time rough video of how to make them. Need to do a good voiceover to the better of the pictures and have something to promote on my website, www.snodgrass.net.
Dave, what was that URL?
And so the first pipes I made were basically all sections joined together because I could only manage that much glass. People today have such a jump off point. Oh, I'm a big believer in learning to make your own tools too. Not all of them, but out in my Volkswagen is even a torch that Curtis made. He used to live down in Selma. Went on to import glass and have a pretty good business at that. And then I haven't seen him for a few years. Hey Curtis, if you're out there, howdy. And yeah, it's like slow motion juggling. I actually get the glass so hot on the inside that the inside wall moves. And I build it up from a standard wall thickness to like a 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 8. Depends on the pipe itself. I don't like a thick pipe because they hold the heat and a thinner pipe has a better heat exchange, so you can have a cooler smoke and a better taste. And pretty much I used to make things like hookah smoking caterpillar with the gun into the hookah smoking caterpillar's mouth and the hookah in his hand and 8 legs on him. And you know what? That kind of stuff you always have to fix, or people have to buy another one. And they're not going to get dug up in another century. I'm sort of the guy that wants my things dug up centuries from now. So every once in a while I do bury something here and there. Drop it in the slough or something. But let's hope there's somebody there to dig them up. we'll have to go.
This is all that.
Right. Drop it in the slough, it could melt. At least it's borosilicate. It should last longer than soft glass. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Henry was telling me what Boro has different pH than soft glass. Like the opposite end of the so one of them's basic, the other one is acidic. I forget my chemistry. We did stuff like roast marshmallows on glass stirring rods in chemistry class. That was memorable. Boiling Vienna sausage in beakers. Yeah, that's Sharon Stutzman did that.
We're still talking about it.
Yep. I saw a little teacher that was smaller than me, I believe. And he took 205-pound Dana Deerdorf by the ear right out of the room when he says, "What you making, Dana?" And he says, "Nitroglycerin." Dana wasn't allowed back into chemistry class for that 6 weeks.
Make it a little bit.
Well, knowing Dana, he would have done it right. So it's a good thing that Mr. Nafee knew that ninja move of
Get near that.
I was putting a bridle on a horse one time, and it reared up when my arm was up over its neck. And the fellow that was there with me, whose horse it was, says, "Bite his ear." And I pierced its ear with those teeth. He set me down so gentle. And when we went to go places, he was the best. Better than a dirt bike. We were rounding up cows on like 120 acres, 110 acres.
Doing your cowboy.
Oh, I did. Not going to talk about those horse thief days, though. Ah, they're shooting already. I gotta have a little more glass to that. Don't look well.
Yeah, can you still getting data? Because I'm not actually recording on tape.
Flex. This is a size 8. My fingernails were drying out enough to be brittle, and like all the different things I do, I break my nails. And I didn't like that. And I found that after working with the gloves, actually it makes your hands work a little harder, but my nails aren't drying out, so they're not chipping when I go work in the garden or something else. In fact, I really like the gloves. My most common burn in all the years of being in the glass shop is not touching the kiln right. Doesn't happen with these.
Somebody's asking if you got your chili yet. You ordered chili.
Oh, I didn't order my Tilly. I was gonna get them when I'm in Canada next year, up at Harney Harbor. And that's north of Toronto, about 100 miles, or about 200K. 160K. I don't remember. But that's what I'm going to do. I think Tilly ought to do a tie-dye series for me. And that's going to be pretty good because I'm going to take it off there after I open the mouthpiece in. Still a little nub of glass on there. I'm going to catch it with the notch in those shears. So how's everything in Michigan? That's where that Tilly question came about.
Yeah, Steve Joseph has got an extra comment over in
Uh-oh. Okay. Sometimes I want to make an opening. And I'll just push the glass down over top of the amount I want to take off. Then we'll let that punny go crooked, about that crooked. And then I'll wait until it's not glowing anymore. And I'll just grab that. And it's snapped off. But I want to take a little more off. So I'm going to do the same thing. I used to call that a wrap and tap. Sometimes instead of grabbing crooked punny, I'll come up underneath the torch. You don't want to do it on the top of the torch because it's going to throw the flake back at you. But if you tap on the bottom, it throws it down on the bench. There's usually a little flake. particular one was thicker than I anticipated. Oh, that's too black. When I folded all that together and blew a bubble, there's a wall right around here. And there's a bubble on the inside. That's sealed off. So what's going on is the more I whittle here, the more vacuum pulls this back down. So I got to take off a big enough chunk to get past the vacuum. Then I'll get everything straight. I was thinking I opened that hole enough, but I didn't. They're still not through. So it wouldn't be a good demo if it went perfect, right? Go back to this handy dandy. I have two options. I'm going to try the heat one first. That's just heat. That's what I wanted to happen. Oh, wrong side. Got it late. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right side. Stretch. And tear that hole open. Now I can't, that's still sealed right across there, so I gotta go back and do all this over again. And flare that just the slightest. That's what I want. Now I'll just go ahead and I'm going to cap that and try to get this to pop on the side. No. The gloves leaked a little bit of air on the skin. And I'll reopen this end, then putty back to it with the cold seal. And finish the mouthpiece. 'Cause I want my mouthpiece done while I've got real control of axis. So, Eugene Glass School is having a competition this year. Are you familiar with the dates on that?
I'm not familiar on the exact dates. I heard it was sometime in August. I was on the website a few days ago,
Okay.
about a week ago. Didn't see them. Do you know the dates on it?
It's on my phone, but I can't access that right now. It's on the calendar. Uh, don't have to remember things. It's terrible. You quit. Of course, that leaves room for other things.
So he's got the glass school in Rosa now, just north of West 11th.
Uh-huh.
So I just looked online, and it looks like the Eugene Glass School Play-Off is going to be August 25th through 27th of this year.
Well, folks, if you're in town for that, and I am, give me a holler. And my email is bob@snodgrass.net. So another wrap and tap, and this will be ready to set aside. Now stand it on end. The heat will rise out. If I set it down on the bench, the gradients of cooling happen going through it horizontally. And when the horizon is the way the piece is shaped, the stresses go around it instead of against so much horizontally. Anyhow, standing pieces on end after they're worked to a relaxed state, should be able to put them back into the fire and finish them. And if I already had the bowl made up for this, I would set this aside, go out and pull some weeds or something in the garden, and then come back after my prep work is cooled down. Another way to save from getting burnt. Oh, work with cold glass. What a novel idea. Oh, the gloves let me pick up things that are 100 degrees or 200 degrees hotter than what I can do normally. And this is how I prep pieces up. Okay, so there's a couple pipe stems made in advance. And I plug one end with a cork when I go to join that to a can. And I guess we'll build a can real quick. I'll look for a piece about 22. Yep, that does pretty good.
So the can's about 22 standard.
Yep. Then I shorten it a little bit and thicken it a little bit. And it's on a 12 mil blow. I also blow straight on to 22 to numbers below that. Anything bigger than that, the flashback's too dangerous and I won't do that. And you really got to know how to construct shapes. That backflash can hurt you very bad. So I'm going to do real simple one, dancing people and a music note. Yeah, I'm gonna fume a little more on there. So we've got some variance.
So when you first did shows in '87, and then you started touring shows. And were you showing people how to blow glasses?
No, Hugh came along and he would bring out my torch for me and my oxygen bottle and set everything up, and I would let him mix some red for me while I went off to see what was going on Dead Lot. It was really neat to have somebody make some color.
And that's Hugh Salkind.
Yeah. Hugh's the one that got me to move to Eugene. We were going to move to Arcata or Ashland.
Well, I remember that bit of Degenerate.
Yeah.
So how'd you meet Hugh on tour?
On tour. He was just a kid that pipes. Color changing, you said? Let me see. You know. So yeah, he's why I moved to Eugene. After he told me they had the better pot. And I only use bridges for very complicated pieces. This will be done without a bridge. Put more color in that on there. Although that looks pretty darn good. I just put some color over the top of it. It's going to be one of those serendipitous pieces. So a little music note right here. I'm not pleased with the edge of that note. Oh, they never look like they're dancing unless you're still listening. Come on. You gotta have some music. Really, it looks stagnant when you don't have music playing. Come on, Pandora, wake up. I'm gonna let it shrink a little bit. Then the idea being, I want to cool the thinner glass. And the people stretch a little more. When we were away from the internet, I took a brass tube and poked eyes in my little faces. So then I fumed on top of that. Been trying to stay right along where I was at before the internet decided to run away. Here I go. I'm going to do a wrap and tap type move on the end here. Open the end for the bowl. And push down on there like that. Pull away a little bit. Wait until the glow is gone. Not quite gone. It's gone. And then blow towards my water bucket, because any little broken shard of glass that hangs up in there will end up ruining your piece if you don't blow it out. And I use the mirror to evaluate what's going on at the other end of the tube. There's how big a hole I want for the bowl. Maybe a 1/2 millimeter bigger. Right there it is. Now I want to set up some. I have to have the tool heated up, cooled down and heated up again before it'll push this bowl without causing it to crack. So there it went red hot. Steady rest on my torch, find the center hole. And after about halfway, I turn and push, because you push a little crooked. If you turn it around halfway and push some more a little crooked, you're back to straight. I'm going to blow one more time on this and round up the top. Recenter my bowl. Oh, I don't like that. I overstretched the hole in that last move. What do you do in a case like that? Well, you make it fall back out. Happens every time I do a demo. I gotta show you how to save it. Because all that work that we went to, people throw things in the trash can that turn into some of the greatest pieces. I want to blow soft enough that the cool air chills the hole. And that's perfect with it on the second try. So don't give up. Can you see in there? I'll try it. Oh yeah, it got louder.
A little too loud.
Yeah, the mic's probably picking up very strong.
Still have something.
Well, that's where it is. Tear that off. There my cap at, hit the flame and it burnt open. Now, I'm gonna wipe this edge off. It's full of bubbles and thin glass and it'll be all exhausted and won't work well. But if I touch in behind it with the flame, I can just lift that right off. And if I keep this spinning around and around, I can even go all the way around with it in one pull, but not so well with the gloves on. Okay, next thing, cork. And we plug the hole. Evaluate which side I want the top to be. There's the music note, so we're going over here to make the hole. And do you remember those silver filings we made first? I'm going to use them when I put the carburetor on. Just some of them. So because I don't use bridges, I wait for that part to set up and then I move on. And I use a smaller flame. You use a flame for the size job you're doing. And I was keeping that facing down so gravity didn't let it fall back into the piece. A little pull. Going even smaller here. And I want to heat both sides of where I sealed the two pieces of glass together and get them to shrink to the thickness of where they joined. That's pretty good. And this is where you got to remember to wait. And wait some more. I'm being Little over zealous here, but I've practiced that. Whoa! Glove caught on fire. Hot. Ooh. Ooh. Smells bad. Next glove. I never did that before.
Right.
Yeah, but I was looking at the wrong thing.
There's
my
looking,
hands on the fire.
I was looking at the camera and I just.
Almost went viral there, I guess. Pop Snodgrass.
On fire.
It's on your first post.
Okay.
anything can happen.
Yeah, I never burnt those gloves before. Okay. Now, silver filings. I'm going to soften the end of the rod here. I'm going to clean this off. 4, 3, 2, 1. Get a little bit of soft glass. Going to push on the silver and then flatten it on the marble down there. Might have to go back in the flame one more time. And push again. A little bit more balance. I want more silver than that. Oh yeah. Those will look like shooting little planets. And I'm softening the zone right there where I want to put my carburetor. And push, pull, blow. And out comes the carburetor from the inside. And some of the silver came over the edge. So there'll be some little balls of metal on the outside. There'll be one color, the ones that are trapped on the inside. They look like gold. Some of that down. Okay, I'm gonna come around here. That makes a pretty nice carb. A lot of little silver balls flying around. Might be that guy's head's affecting the way it went off in space there. Okay, next. I'm going to sign it real quick. I'm going to break out the first fireman. And Dave, would you take this and create a puddle right there?
So you said if you look down over here.
That'll do good. It'll take them, I haven't signed it yet. I'm gonna take and draw an S with the silver we made. And a 17. Okay, refresh the puddle. That's good. Throwing that all in smooth. And right into the water. And pull it back a little bit. See that nice concave that I have down there? Instead of the acute angle that you would get if you flatten on graphite, this comes down, rounds, and goes around and around, and the shock wave, when this gets dropped, goes around and around instead of hanging up where that acute angle is. So I'm going to the kiln.
Bob, was that Hardybacker?
That was Hardybacker.
Sorry, guys.
Come over. There, we can get that out of the way.
Oh, sorry.
Coffee.
Someone's asking if there's a downstem in that bowl.
No, that's just a dry pipe.
And so does the steam help make that concave
That's what forms it.
section?
It pushes up, and you look at the bottom of any of my pieces, and there's a concave. Every once in a while, I'll push a top hat that doesn't quite work right, or the bowl hole's way too big. I'll tear it off real short, push it down, and allow it to blow such a bubble that it pops back through, and I got a bead. Just got to go with the fire polish, and it's there. Products. Well, are we up to it, or?
Are we up to, are there, does anyone have any questions out there?
Yeah. Here's a good picture of the concentration difference of the two silvers made.
Oh,
Such your water.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That's right, I wasn't really thirsty.
My water's full of vitamin C.
Sure.
No, really.
I believe you.
I've been cutting down on beer because I noticed I had some tendonitis, and so I tried to cut down beer for a week, and the tendonitis kind of went away. But water's kind of boring, but you put a bunch of vitamin C in it, and then it's got that little, and it's almost as good as beer, but it doesn't give me any tendonitis.
Almost as good as beer. Hey, someone wants to know about the blue in fume. Any tricks to doing that?
The less is more. Less silver fuming, lighter, thinner, will give you a bluer background. And if you trap it without burning the silver off, so you keep the bulk of your piece off center of the flame, and so that would be a bit heavy. You actually would like what's the lightest side of this. And when you go to cover it up, you keep this piece that's your target out of the flame. Come back in. So that that's all trapped before it's exposed to the flame. And if you stay with a reducing flame, you're more likely to trap that blue also. Once you go with an oxidizing flame, that blue wants to caramelize on you. So initially you trap it without exposing it to the flame. Then when you melt it in, you might want to melt it in clear out at this kind of distance where the flame has had time to mature, and instead of being reducing, it's more neutral. Or oxidizing, it's still more neutral. The further it travels, the more the gases get to mix and burn. Oh, here's a tool that everybody that does work similar to mine could use. I made those a while back, but so when you're making a piece and all of a sudden it's too hot to put your lips on the end, you pick up one of these and put it there. That's your chance. And I make two of them because maybe you want to blow it out over the carb. Well, this works pretty good for the carb, but what if you wanted to blow out down inside the bowl? Let's see, do we have a bowl made? No. Anyhow, you would use the round end and fit it into the bowl and blow. But if you use the same one, this got hot enough to give you a blister on your lips if you turn it around. So don't turn it around, have a second one handy. And I put dots on it so I can find it now. I recognize that piece.
So somebody's asking about the back to the steam, making that nice shape. absorbs that. So, and that's pretty much a function of the steam providing pushing an even pressure, making it very.
Well, better practice it because you can screw them up. You put it down too soon, it blows it too thin. You want your glass to be set up enough that you're going to move it a little on the surface, but watch the bottom of this. Here we go. I'm going to come back down and I'm going to touch it to the water and see. That came up inside. But if I would have done it faster, would have blown a bigger bubble, the glass would have been a little softer. Here, we'll make this into a little bitty bottle. I used to have a tool business. The reason I had a tool business so I could buy all these different things and try them. But definitely have a lot of homemade ones too.
So is the silver how opaline rod is made?
I don't think so because of the pink flame that comes off of the opaline when you use it. Makes me think that's tin. Remember that part of chemistry somehow. Flame test things. Or it could be zinc. I forget which one of those is the one that rousts the blue flame. That looks like a pretty nice top. Now how do I get it apart? I could wait until it's cold and scratch it. Take a file and scratch it as soon as it starts to set up. Or I can heat a real small area, blow and pull. That was kind of sloppy, but okay, how about this? Oh, Will Menzies tool. I'm going to flatten the top a little bit. And these white things I have around, there's a marble. Can't use granite. It'll blister and pop and throw rocks at you. But marble, it's where the word marver came from. Italian for marble. There's a cute little jar. Put a cork in it. Used to make a lot of little vases that I call grandma vases because kids they'd be really short, but kids bring grandma flower with no stem on it. Yeah, it was fun working our way around the country. I'm gonna go toss this one in the kiln too. Oh, here's another apprentice's tools. Cameron Tower tool grabbers for putting things in the kiln. And I think, you sell these? Oh, I'm gonna tell him he has to come see you. He's also at Cameron Studios, or Sea Tower Studios.
Cameron?
Yeah. Anyhow, he makes some really nice grabbers.
Right, he did his pretty long stint there at Glass Eye, was it?
Yeah, until he got trigger thumb. Oh boy, they didn't give him a good help out at getting better. So he quit. He like got really anxious over the fact his thumb was just falling over pretty much. He had to have some surgery and he didn't get enough time off for it to heal. Anyhow,
He's come back to Boro, right?
he's back to Boro, but he also puts like I think a couple days at Glassy Baby, and there's a couple other studios. Because he is the master of the paperweight and the big vessels. That jar that's underneath that holographic skull over there, that's on the table.
Yeah, that's
the
the one down there.
That's a camera.
Anyhow, we've been doing this, at this for a couple, 2.5 hours.
Should be a pretty good run.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Cameraman needs to put down the camera. His arms like so. For your interest, for tendonitis, pick these up in Chinatown. They come in several different sizes. You work them until they actually get warm in your hands. Turns your hand into another heart. It's a pump. I go by, people say, oh, you can't let them hit each other. Bullshit. This thing's were like originated around the year 1000. It was one of the 3 treasures of Beijing. And everybody had to give 3 treasures as far as cities. And they gave these to the emperor. Thing is, the little ball that's falling around inside there is making little thumps. All of our meridians for acupuncture criss and cross in your hand. And you start whirling these things around and they pump stuff up. And I go when it makes the wrong sound, I go back the other way. Now for a beginner, their face all contorts, their whole body goes into some kind of change where you're stretching things way out that you didn't know happened, and it's cleaning the sheath around the nerve. Anyhow, the best medicine. I once had tendonitis so bad I'd turn the doorknob halfway. Have to finish it with the other hand.
That's brutal.
And I flew from Key West out to LA to go to a Dead show. And I've always felt kind of obligated to accept trades. And a guy had a pair of these, and he told me his dad is the first American doctor to import these, and he gave me a brochure all about it, and I learned the history of them, and I let them sit there for a day, and I almost thought I was going to sell them, and then I picked them up, and before 48 hours was up, I knew this was medicine that came to me that I really needed at the time. And anyhow, bigger and smaller, and they're great exercise. They keep all this stuff going. But I got rid of the tendonitis here. Oh, set them puppies down. Next morning I got up and my elbow goes, hurt. Oh, maybe I got to pump it out of there. So I picked them back up and I left it alone after it got out of my elbow. Well, there's another spot somewhere right here, another spot right here. And then once it seems to hit your spinal flow, you've broken out.
So people are asking where they can get your work. Do you sell online? Do they see
There are some online at snodgrass.net and email Jonathan, and that's my son-in-law.
Jonathan at Snodgrass.
And we have several stores. We supply a place like the Cupboard in Cincinnati. Let's see, in Detroit there's a store. Dang, I performed there last year. I'm sorry, guys. Another store down the Rabbit Hole in Bay City, Michigan. Anyhow, most of the stores I sell to are out of town or we sell online. Las Vegas, Aces High. And we should ask Jonathan, my son-in-law. He like can tell you off the top of his head all the stores I sell to.
So we got any other questions out there?
Yeah. Email John and have him send you a list of stores in your area. And my daughter and her husband John both blow glass too, and it's really nice to have this as a whole family kind of thing. My son makes things better looking than mine, but you'll have to run a lot of miles to be able to find somebody that'll sell you one. Because he like only makes them for special. And then my grandson, Bob Snodgrass Glass, and Bob the Fourth is another one he has, Instagram. Bobby Snodgrass Glass Instagram. There's a couple underscores in there, Bobby underscore Snodgrass underscore glass. And he's on Instagram.
Thanks for letting us come into your studio here. Very generous. We're grateful
Thank
for
you.
this evening and for everything that you've done. I mean, what can you say? It's,
I'm still having fun at it, so you guys actually make it more fun. And
but there's a lot of people who are thanking you online right now that have been watching for the past couple hours. Many, many thanks.
sweet. Don't catch your gloves on fire.